Mr. S. We've got another good show for you, as we always do. And Donald, this is going to be interesting tonight.
It's going to be a good one. We have somebody here. Our guest is Michael Saffron. He's going to be telling us his story about overcoming autism. We're going to learn a lot today about autism. He's going to educate us on that and also share his story about the various challenges that he has had to overcome to be successful in business as he is today. So, Michael, introduce us. So we've had the pleasure of, knowing you. We've met you through, you've helped me out with a lot of business things. So give a little introduction, who you are, where you're from, and kind of how you got here today.
No, sounds good, and thanks for having me on the show. I think in time I'll just kind of warm up here.
Sure.
Okay, so it's going to take a little bit. And just one thing you mentioned in the intro too is you never overcome autism. It's something you have, and one of the things is I wasn't diagnosed with having autism until I was very late by today's standards. I was 41 years old when I was diagnosed. That was years ago. So learning about it, and hopefully today I can give some tips and things. It seems like once I started talking about it, and everyone's got a nephew, everyone's got a cousin, everyone's got someone that they know that are on various stages of the autism spectrum, it's called. Myself, people will say, well, you're not autistic, you don't seem autistic, but that's because now it's a range. So you can have people that appear to function and seem completely like a normal neurotypical is what we call them.
Neurotypical, okay.
Neurotypical is what we call you folks.
Okay.
And I'm neurodiverse.
Neurodiverse, no, yours sounds fancier.
Neurotypical and neurodiverse.
Typical sounds a little
I've been
better.
called a lot of things, but I've never been called that.
You are totally neurodiverse. So neurotypical. So that's just something to learn. And there's people all the way, from one side all the way to people that are diagnosed early. They're nonverbal. They don't speak. So everyone is sort of on a journey together. And hopefully, I can share some of the things that I went through and I learned and I practiced to appear normal, right? This is a little bit of controversial. I've read things on one side or another. That's something called masking. So one thing that I learned to do, and really on my own, because I was diagnosed late, is to mask autistic tendencies to appear normal, to get a better job and move forward in life. And, you still slip up and say things you don't mean to. You try to grab those words, or you're just too honest about things that you see. It's a lot of work to do that stuff and pre-process, but it's muscle memory, and you can learn how to do it if you choose. I'm not saying there's a right way or a wrong way.
And your story is unique because, like you said, you did not get diagnosed. You really didn't have a formal, labeling, we'll call it. So, but you grew up realizing, hey, I'm a little different than the other kids. So I've got to figure out a way to fit in, and I'm sure that journey was challenging.
During that journey, when did that happen? I mean, was it at 41 when you thought about you're different, or was you younger?
No, so you don't know because you see the world out of your own eyes, but I couldn't figure out why I didn't have any friends for a long time. I had very few friends. I still have very few personal friends or lifelong friends. You're always, you get picked last for sports. The friends that you want to talk to are like adults. I mean, that's the problem with being in 5th grade and having a university level vocabulary is everybody thinks you're strange, right?
Right. So
there's a lot of those things to learn and overcome, and part of that in the early days. So, so I was born in Canada. I'm from Canada. I come from a fairly smart family. My father's really smart. He's got a PhD. He did a bunch of stuff, and we moved down to Portland when I was going into grade 1. Actually, it was before that. I did grade 1 there, and you don't know, but it's just there's a lot of noise in your head because you wonder why you don't have any friends. You wonder why people look at you weird, and there's a lot of little things, and people will pick on you and stuff like that for things you say or things you wear, and you don't care about a lot of those things. You just can't figure out why you don't have any friends and you don't fit in.
Yeah, it doesn't register to you, just like you're not making the connection, I guess, when you're younger.
Right, or you try harder, you try to do more things, really good at math and those sorts of things, and that doesn't make you it doesn't help you get picked
on the
right?
playground, right?
Coordination skills are challenged, right? So it can be very difficult at a young age, and it's good now that there's a lot of tools and a lot of tests to diagnose those things. Also coming from an academic family, you know, there's autism. So I've heard, I mean, there's all these different theories. I've heard stuff about what vaccines and pain. I don't know. The stuff that I've read said it's inherited, right?
Yeah.
So if you have awkward, geeky parents, they didn't have diagnosis back then. I suspect a lot of my family is on the spectrum. And, you know, the social skills aren't translated. You're not trained. There's nature and nurture, right? And so not only are you wired kind of a different way to process, you also don't have the nurturing from a family that may also be on the spectrum, right? Fortunately for my family and stuff is a lot of them were in academia, where a lot of these people, you know, math, science, academia, it's a haven for,
Yeah,
for
people who
people on the
thrive.
spectrum, yeah.
It's
'Cause
almost
you're
an
not-
advantage of sorts.
Yeah, because you're not judged on all of those things. When everybody's on the spectrum together, nobody's an outcast. You all think and process the same way.
So that's, like I said, it's kind of a blessing that you were in that type of environment. It's just more when you got out of it, the
Or-
social aspect.
Or went to public school.
Public school's rough on everybody.
You talk about the spectrum. Is it something that goes from 1 to 15, or you know, that spectrum, or teach me what the spectrum is?
So one just side story that was interesting was after all of this stuff, and I read this book, which was Very Late Diagnosis of Asperger's Syndrome. And I read this book and I'm like, that's me. So went to the psychiatrist, did the tests, and it came back, you know, positive. It's a very long exam. They also do an IQ test and a bunch of other stuff during that encounter. And I haven't looked into the scores, but there's like, it's like low, and I'm sorry I'm not an expert on all the medical stuff, but it's like low is like 18 and high is like 35. And I think I'm like 23 or 24. So I'm on the lower quartile of being autistic.
Interesting. You're right, everybody seems to have somebody in their family. I had family members through marriage, and that's when I become a little bit more familiar with it. And of all things, I became probably most familiar with it through the boxing gym.
Really?
And we had a parents come and said, can our son train? And I said, sure. I said, well, let me tell you about him. And they started telling me, and I said, well, sure. And from now, he didn't like to be touched or hugged or whatever. I'm a big hugger. And it was amazing. He would walk in the gym after a while, after he got used to me, and he'd be coming looking for me. And I just loved it because, you know, we had a breakthrough.
Yeah.
And he loved boxing, but what he wanted to do is he wanted to perfect it. Is that normal? I mean, he was like trying, why does it do this? Why do you, you know, why? He wanted to know the whys,
Yeah.
which I wish all my other students wanted to know, and they didn't, but he did. And he wanted me to break everything down for him. Is that common?
So there's a range of different things. One of them is this, and hopefully they're positive things, is you can have very obsessive behaviors on things and want to perfect them, right? Fortunately for me, it was business, right? I wanted to learn about, and we can talk about that journey, because actually the journey and learning about sales is what really changed my life for the better. And I developed a passion for that. It's too much these days that kids have an obsession or a passion with video games. You might have you might have seen this in other things in movies, an obsession with blocks, or an obsession with counting, or obsession with trees or nature or the environment. There's some very famous people that it just takes over everything in you, and it makes it your absolute focus. So yeah, it can be a detriment, especially when you're in grade school and all you want to do is read about math, but you also have to do social and studies and phys ed, you know, and you're so clumsy you can't even do anything. But when you get later in life, when you find the right seat on the bus and you can engage your passion, nobody can stop you when that's the piece that you're focused on.
You're just so focused. I
You're
think
so
that's kind of the secret. You
hyper-focused.
just be so focused that, I mean, it has an advantage at that point.
A big advantage, yes.
Now, you said that sometimes you'll be like real good at math, but everything else is maybe not so good. Is that correct?
It's not that you're not necessarily good at, it's just your passion for something will take over your entire being and thought process.
Well, I must have been real screwed up because I wasn't any good at anything except for fighting
Yeah,
and
but
boxing.
that was a passion of yours.
Yeah, it
and look
was.
where you took it, and look
Yeah.
at everything that you've done,
Yeah.
right? An incredible story that you've got.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, the time that I've got to work with you, you amaze me. And so I can see where you were passionate about business. And I say where you were, you are, because I got to work with you, and I've seen that.
Right, and exactly. So we've worked together, and I've just impressed at that focus. And you do take things, you break them down, you get very methodical. And I'd like to hear your journey on the sales, because a lot of, sales is a skill, like anything else or in business. But I just see you attack anything, whatever it might be, and it's like you go to the fundamentals, and you just break it down, and you kind of layer it, and it becomes very kind of tangible. Is the best way I can describe it. You take really abstract concepts, kind of like sales. Sales can be abstract. There's a lot of
Data
emotion.
points. Yeah.
But I guess tell us about that. Because sales, you hear a typical salesperson. I think if you interview someone, say, "Hey, picture a salesperson in your head. What are they like?" And most people think kind of like loud and kind of boisterous. That's more typical. So that's obviously not you. But to be
You
effective.
talking about me?
I'm
Is he
talking about
talking
you.
about me? I mean, is that what he's saying?
You got personality for all of us.
Well, that's kind of typical. I'd say you'd be more typical, right? But so that you get someone like someone that's neurodiverse, right, instead of neurotypical. And how do you how you approach sales? And I guess that's one kind of talk about.
So that was really interesting. So I'll go back to a little bit before that. So I did struggle for a long time with friends. I'm not really into chit chat. And there's some other things is just the way your face kind of looks and things. So I realized that I wanted to interact with other humans, and I had to figure out what I was doing wrong to do that. So I started studying, because I wasn't hanging out with them, the way that they interacted, the way that they do greetings, the way that they look, the way that they smile into their eyes and these things. And I needed to just practice, right? You mentioned earlier about the kid was uncomfortable with hugging, right? You're uncomfortable with hugging. My family rarely hugs each other. I mean, it's just not something. How to do a handshake. Even looking in someone's eyes for some reason is uncomfortable. Not because it's thing, but I mean, the whole time I've been staring at your mouth. You haven't even noticed, right? It looks like I'm looking right at you. So there was a bunch of little things, and I didn't have a guide back then. I didn't know
This is
what
all
it was.
self. This is you.
This was just learning because I wanted to integrate, right? But I didn't know always what to say or what to do. So fast forward, I got hired by a company in Canada called Future Shop. It's like Best Buy, but it was in Canada, and Best Buy actually bought Future Shop. And I was very fortunate when I got hired as they sent me to sales school. So straight in I went, and they taught you like a mathematical course for sales. It wasn't the how to influence friends, win people, or whatever all that other fluffy stuff is. It was a scientific approach, and it was called guest. You would greet someone. Hi, my name's Mike. Like, they gave it right down. Hi, I'm Michael. Welcome to Future Shop. And your name is? Great. So there's your greeting. Good. Got that nailed out. Understand. Where have you been? What have you seen? What have you liked? Right? These are very, very straightforward questions. Methodical questions, right? And that gets people talking. And then what you do is you then take what they said, and if they didn't say it, you don't like pitch it, because you truly want to find what they need. And you learn about the market, you learn about knowledge. I knew every computer spec and detail of everything back in the 90s. And I would truly try to find that family based on what you said. You want this, you want to play games, you need a Pentium 75, right? With 2 gigs of RAM, right?
Nice.
Back in the day. And you go through this process, and then it's just, it's a given. It's secure the sale and thank. What I realized very quickly was, as I went through the sales school, is this is just, humans talking to each other. So when I would interact with other humans now, it became more simple. Hi, I'm Michael. And you are? You know, why are you here today? Where else have you been? How did you get here? I mean, the track became a track for my life. So now I knew how to greet people. I knew how to, you know, listen to them, right? I don't necessarily care about whatever football game was on the weekend, but at least you know, how was your weekend, right? These are things normal people ask. You don't just go straight to work like I like to. So that was really the genesis of that. And when I got into that organization, that was my business school. So I learned about sales, did well in sales following the sales track. Then I got to learn about inventory management, days on hand. It was retail. Retail is hard. Great place to start, not a great place to end. So worked my way up, got through that, but I learned everything that I needed to know about business at that stage of my life very rapidly in retail, in sales.
Now, when they hired you on, or I guess when you took that role, were you a little apprehensive? You know, this taking on this, hey, you're going to be dealing with customers, or did you take on the challenge?
Well, I didn't know what to do. I mean,
You just kind of took it as it came.
it was actually one of my friends that I went to high school with. He left high school right away and went to work at Future Shop. And we were hanging out one day, and he goes, man, this job is killing me. Because, man, every Saturday they put the numbers on the board, your sales, your gross margin, your extended warranty percent, and there's people above the line, below the line, and it's so much pressure. And I looked at this like, you have quantitative scoring in this organization? This sounds like something I could do. And literally because of that conversation with that friend is why I went and applied at that organization.
So you like the metrics.
Yeah, because he was all worried about it every day, and I was like, man, they got like real scoring. It's not about personality. It's not about whose buddy you are or anything. They just throw the numbers on the board, and you sink or you swim. I love that.
So that was the attractive. That's what started
It was
it.
a quantitative driver. So it wasn't a fear of sales. It was an excitement to move into a quantitative environment.
Very interesting.
Interesting. So you're born, you're a kid. When did you notice that you were different in what you, people say to me, I'm different.
We're all a
And
little
so
different.
I think we're all different. But when did you start thinking that you're different?
Well, I really didn't. I just saw a challenge in front of me that I don't have any friends.
That was the main thing.
I feel awkward dealing with people. I feel awkward greeting people. I just felt awkward all the time. And because of that, I didn't know there was even something called autism, right? I just had a bunch of the symptoms. I mean, we're not going to go into it all, but I would recommend that book, Very Late Diagnostic. I mean, I read that book.
Say
and
it again, what's it called?
Very Late Diagnosis of Asperger's Syndrome.
Okay.
And I read that book, I'm like, this is me. I mean, it was super simple. All the things that I had experienced were all accumulated in there.
So
But you read that-
Asperger's is autism.
Right. There used to be Asperger's and other things, and now they just rolled everything into this thing called autistic spectrum disorder that has a range.
Okay.
Right.
So Asperger's is not really a label anymore. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I read.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not.
But you read this book late in life. This is not something you read back when you were a kid. This is
No, this is when I was, 40. So,
Okay.
I mean, that was like 8 years ago I read this book.
so starting early in life. That's where you just realized, like you said, you didn't know about autism. You just kind of like, hey, how come I don't have any friends? And that's what started your whole. You didn't really think that you were different per se. You just didn't understand why things.
No, I just felt awkward. And there was always something, but I just tried to integrate my behavior to become more acceptable to other humans.
This is an opinion. Now, like you try to imagine, it's very theoretical. If you were diagnosed very young, do you think that would have helped you or hurt you? Because, in my opinion, if someone's diagnosed, it almost becomes like something they stand on, or like a crutch. Like, hey, this is just my weakness, and I can't exceed any further. Where, is it your opinion of I didn't even know? No one labeled this thing. This is just life to me, and I've got to live. I've got to figure out how to, integrate. You think it's better for you that you were not diagnosed?
No, I mean, I think that is solely based on the human themselves.
It could be very
Because-
personal.
Well, no, and just some people will use whatever diagnosis of whatever as a crutch or an excuse, right? I don't want accommodations. I just know it. I will say it. I will explain it. But it's more like, hey, I'm autistic. If I say something that's like brutally honest, and it's offensive, because I will state facts that people will find offensive in sales meetings and business. I don't mean to. I don't mean any harm. But it's having conversations saying, this is the way that I process. I don't mean anything malicious. So if I do this and you feel offended, just talk to me and I'll explain it.
Mm-hmm.
So I never want to use it as a crutch. I don't want accommodations and any of those things. But we're all humans out there. Some people will use it as a crutch. Some people will want accommodations. Some people want that free ride. Just saying. I mean, I don't want to get, what do they call it, canceled for saying something on here, but like it's, you know, yes, you either step up to whatever challenge you face in your life. You stood up to a ton of challenges, right, and got a lot of people through. You're either a person that's going to stand up and overcome no matter what, or you're someone that's going to be a victim and always make excuses because it's always something else.
That's strong.
Yeah,
I think it's very strong in every aspect of life.
So, Michael, you're growing up. You find out you have this, and actually, you didn't find out you had it because you didn't find out till. Now, did you date a lot of girls? Did you? And I have a reason I'm fixing to lead to something.
Yeah, not terribly. You know, I got married to my first wife pretty young. And then I recently got remarried to a lovely lady, and I couldn't have done that without the
She's
skills that
gorgeous.
I have. Oh, thank you.
She's stunning,
Thank you.
and
And she's sitting outside this room listening to it.
she's out there. She's stunning, gorgeous, and I'm impressed.
No, she's been absolutely, you know, amazing. And, you know, you go through your whole life, and then when you finally meet somebody, when you know, and I didn't know what that meant until I met her, and it changed everything in my life. You know, she's my partner, my best friend, my wife, we were laughing, my buddy. I mean, we get to go and have the privilege of travel, got each other's backs. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be like, and it took a long time to get there. And she's very tolerant because, like I said, I mean, you don't mean anything wrong, and once you get to know somebody, she can also see the signs and things, and she's very understanding. It's like, you didn't mean it, you just said it, right?
Sure.
And finding somebody that can not listen to what you say, but hear what you mean
What you're trying to say.
is very, very rare, because people
Yeah.
usually just listen to what you say. She listens to what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and that's why it works so well.
But isn't it, in my books, what an outstanding, what's the word I'm looking for? The fact that you do say what you want. I wish more people would say what they want, or say it like it is. Sometimes people try to candy coat stuff. I'd rather somebody just tell me like it is, all right, than candy coat it. And so my hat's off to you on that, you know, because
Well, I mean, that depends who you are and what business environment you're in.
Speaking of business environment, what kind of sales did you do? I have a reason for asking that too.
So I'll give you a quick jump of my career and maybe just the steps I learned at each position I had.
Okay.
So we went back, we talked about Future Shop, learned all about business, learned hire, fire, P&L, days on hand inventory, all kinds of stuff.
See, I still haven't learned all that stuff.
You sell yourself short. You know this.
So then, I mean, my whole life just kind of happened. It was strange. So then the phone rang, and a buddy of mine, I wanted to move back to Edmonton, and he said, hey, I've got this telemedical startup out of Winnipeg. Do you want to come sell medical software, electronic medical records in the 90s? Like, sure. So joined this little startup, and we did everything. I mean, you think about all these little companies in EMR back when doctors had paper and paper schedules. I mean, we built it, and we run cable through the clinic on the weekend, learned how to do that. We built the servers, you know, in the closet, and loaded SQL 7 and server,
Oh, wow.
and, you know, set them up, area networks. I mean, it was fascinating. And then, but what I really learned about at that job was about marketing. So everybody in that segment was selling electronic medical records. And I'll tell you, no doctor wants to buy electronic medical records. I got to type, I got to do this. Yeah, they hated it. So we came up with a campaign called the Paperless Clinic. So I learned that about packaging marketing is every doctor wanted a paperless clinic. So the what we were selling was a paperless clinic. The how we did it was electronic medical records. And we led to market. You said earlier about you're always asking why and how, and the guy wants to know about all the moves. You take it back and all these complexities back to the baseline. What do they want? They want paperless clinic. What are you selling? EMR. That's why nobody's buying. So sell a paperless clinic. And it's nothing about subterfuge or hiding. I mean, you show them and you truly want to solve their problem, which is paper.
It's almost speaking their language, if you want to boil it down to the basic.
Yeah.
This is what they're wanting, and this is what they're saying. But
Absolutely.
from a sales point of view, we're always trying to push stuff, like you said.
So you're big on numbers, right?
I'm okay at math. Yeah.
When I was selling automobiles,
Okay.
I learned, and this is my simplifying my deal. I realized real quickly that if I talked to X amount of people, I made X amount of sales. And if I just doubled that, like my deal was, I started off talking to 10 people to make one sale. And I started noticing it was kind of consistent. And so I said, well, hey, I got real smart. And I said, well, I'll talk to 20 people and make 2.
Yeah.
And actually it was 20 people to make one sale, and then not 10, 20 people. And I become the top salesman just by doing the numbers game. And I'm not real bright on numbers, but I did good on that, and I sold more cars than everybody else, and
That's hustle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is absolutely, and one of the things as I move into sales management environments is to track is number of quotes, which in your case is number of customers you hit and the number of closes you have. And then start playing with things like price and go-to-market strategy or different pieces, right?
Yeah.
So I look at sales. There's a movie called Moneyball. Have you watched the movie
Seen it.
Moneyball?
Yeah, good one.
Okay. So I like to do something very similar in sales environments to what they did in Moneyball, right? Because in sales, and as we all kind of mentioned, it's kind of slidey, and there's all this like black magic around who do you like, who's your best, nobody knows. So Moneyball is a quick just summary of a movie is a statistician went into the major leagues early, and instead of who they like or what they have or all this political
emotional
crap,
aspects.
the emotional aspects of baseball and what players they like, he went purely on math, on base percentage, slugging percent, put them in the right order, and filled a team based on stats. And he never met a single one of these people, because really for sales, it doesn't matter that much. The salesperson's personality is important and things, but really it's about results. And so going back to that, it's like you just hit more customers. So with the same method, you would get more sales. But I wish that a sales manager, someone saw those sales you got and figured out why exactly you closed that deal. Why did you close that one deal? So by you hitting, say twice as many customers, you would also close as many deals. You get 4 times your money.
Yeah.
So it's 3-dimensional. Hustle is good, but also tweaking process and systems also. And when both those go together, that's where you see these rises in sales organizations.
I had it down to where I'd talk to 20 people to get one sale. Then I did get it down to where I talked to 10 people because I polish my sales talk up.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing is that I learned that the more I could help that customer with their needs,
Yes.
I didn't think about how much I was going to make. I never thought, and I'm saying that honestly, I never thought about how much I'm going to make on this sale. I want to meet their needs.
Yes.
And if I could meet their needs and give them everything they wanted, I was going to make a sale. And sometimes I'd make a lot of money, sometimes a little bit. When it all come together, that's what I looked at, is when it all come together. And then after that, it went from 20 to 10. And then, of course, it got, I started doing some little crazy things like the dealership. That they didn't have cars that they would let people loaner cars.
Yes.
So I went and bought it's actually a trade-in that was coming in. I bought that trade-in. And so now my people had a loaner car. I didn't have to use the dealership.
Yes.
And I looked at it totally different. I looked at it that I was in business for myself. There was a dealership there that supplied me my cars. They also supplied me my sales managers and my people that did my financing. They had a person that did the detailing on the car. And eventually I got to the point where I said, they all work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't have to pay for all this. I just got to keep the sales coming. And so, I had a plan of action. I stuck to it. I came home one day and told my kids, Daddy's going to be gone a lot, but this is what Daddy's doing. And I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. I like to tell them what I'm going to do and then do it. And so I went out, and next thing you know, I'm selling 50 cars a month. And it was just a numbers game. I talked to so many people. And then it got so cool, and I'll close it on this, is that my numbers got better and better and better because I found out if I could treat that customer better than anybody else could, they were coming back to me.
Yes.
I already bought them a car to use, and if they couldn't get it, I'd take the car to their house. And next thing you know, I've got people in the dealership working for me that were salesmen because they wanted a piece of my deal. And it just got to the point where I sold so many cars that I had my own little business there. And nobody told me what to do because when you sell 50 cars a month, you tell everybody else what to do.
Yes.
And I love that. It was just interesting. And it works on everything, really. It's a matter of talking to people and taking care of people.
And the questions, you said that was kind of the first thing that you learned, is asking questions. That's kind of taking care of, like, what do they want?
The understand piece. So you did a whole bunch of things right in that little segment, right? So one of them was, and you reiterate again, that's the understand portion. You listen to them talk. You don't just start pitching them,
that's
right?
right.
So you get them in the right car. And then you realize there were other challenges. And a lot of those other challenges, like the loaner car, that's something called customer experience. So just by being Termite, you went through and solved a bunch of these business problems inherently. Because you looked at, part of the reason you got is customer experience was good, so they're going to tell their friends you're going to get repeat business. There's too many good things to like call, but each of those was ticking off a box in my head about things that's wrong with most businesses
Yeah,
that people aren't aware of.
yeah,
We talk about customer experience. We talk about all of those things. How fast is it to quote? If you go back to 1 week later, they already bought a different car.
yeah,
You only need 2 things to make a buying decision. How much and when?
yeah.
How much and when? Does it fit your needs? Yes, I'll take it. And you should be able to deliver.
That's right.
And y'all talked about numbers. You say you're not good at numbers. He's good at numbers. I don't even think it's numbers, in my opinion. It's more like pattern recognition.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of recognizing, if I talk to this many people, I sell this, I can just increase this. Yours is really seeing patterns. So it's like the quicker you can recognize patterns, kind of forget about the math. The math's part of it, but you're just seeing patterns. And I
Yeah.
think you recognize that. And
Talking about the numbers, I would go out to stick to my numbers game, and I would go buy gummy bears, the dollar store, and I would go just to buy gummies. I could give the gummies back to the kids when the kids come, but I'd buy gummies all day long,
Mm-hmm.
and I would love it when I could get a whole line of people. And now I'm in there, and I've got a captive audience, and they'd be in line wanting to pay their deal, and I would just simply reverse things. Most people would be trying to sell somebody a car. And it was the truth, I would say, hey, if y'all know anybody wanting to get rid of a car, we're looking for trade-ins. We've got people, we've got buyers at our dealership today, and we really did. And I said, today's a great day to come. Everybody's always wanting to get rid of their car, and I said, we pay top dollar. Well, top dollar is whoever, is whatever makes that person happy. And so instead of telling them, come buy a car, if you want to sell yours, we're looking for them, and I'd love to talk to you because we need them desperately, and we did. But if that person gets rid of that car, they need to buy another one.
Yes.
And so I just used some what I called common sense things, and create a need. If there's not a need there, you're not going to sell a car.
No,
and We've got a question. Before we go to that question, I want to real quick. I know that you've mentioned something exactly like what he's talking about. Instead of trying to sell, look for a way to buy. You approached it from or you recognized it, maybe, I don't know, instinctually. How did you come to see something like that? Probably more methodically.
So, well, yeah.
And then we'll go to this question.
So that went to rapport building. So, you know, it's
That was
always
important.
it's always scary to necessarily to buy something. Like when you go to buy, your defenses are up. I mean, you're going to a car lot. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, how high
Yeah.
can your defenses
Yeah.
be? So when you're going to buy something from someone else, you put them into the sales position and it brings down their defenses and you can have a real conversation. So it's a really quick rapport builder. Nobody wants, it always says no soliciting on the places, right? But all of a sudden they're selling you. So it just changes that whole mentality and the way
Interesting.
they're with it.
Yeah.
Well, we got a question.
Yeah, so Jason Morrow said, Termite, I bought my first new car from you.
I love it. Jason, I want to give a big shout out. We went for, Jason, what was it, 15, 20 years? His dad worked with my dad. And just recently, I'm standing in the parking lot at the boxing gym. I look over and he's right there. And I said, Jason, I looked back at it and it is you. And I want to thank you because Jason just did something for Fighter Nation. He made it possible for Fighter Nation to go to take a young man to a tournament, a national tournament that he's won 3 times, and we're going for number 4.
That's incredible. Thank you,
And,
Jason.
Yeah, Jason, we love you, man. Thank you so much. And he did it for our kids.
Yeah.
And talking about a man with a big heart, that's a man with a big heart. And
If anybody else has a question or comment, feel free.
yeah, yeah.
if you-
And we're going to get Jason on here one of these days.
We'll have to.
I actually told you about him the other day.
I remember.
Yeah, he's got a great story. I know his dad and know my dad, and I've told y'all my dad was a gangster.
Mhm.
Okay. Jason, I'm calling it like it is. Our dads were wild.
Now, I know you help a lot of kids at the gym, so I'm thankful for people like Jason that keep that going. You, Michael, obviously now at this stage in life, I see you really wanting to help people too. So what are some of the things you've done to, I guess, try to recognize, how can I help these people?
Well,
Maybe-
one is like awareness, right? That you can make it. I've always got time. I always get LinkedIn messages for people just asking for things or advice or through the network, and try to inspire as much hope that I can that everything's going to be okay with the right tools and stuff that's out there for people. The other one is I volunteer on the board of a company called Potentia. Very fascinating organization. So they, part of it is a recruiting agency, and they specifically place autistic talent with organizations. So they place with Chevron, they've placed with Exxon, a lot of people, especially in the IT engineering types of fields.
Sure.
And then also they've got a pool of people, really like way smarter than me, people like computer guys
I don't know if that's possible.
that solves highly complex problems and projects for organizations looking for out-of-the-box solutions.
This is Potentia.
Potentia. So
Okay.
it's an organization I volunteered time to and help them with business process because they are a business, but they're also helping the cause.
Is it a nonprofit, or how do they
It's
function?
it's for profit.
Okay.
But if you're going to get recruited and have somebody, you can look at the stats. The stats are great because once you place an autistic individual, chances are they're going to stay.
Yeah.
The hardest part is getting through that gauntlet of like interviews and processes disqualify a lot of individuals. The autistic segment has a very high unemployment rate, but once they get hired, they tend to stay. So, and it also, anyway, they do a whole bunch of great stuff. So that is one area. I'll
What
try
is
to
the
spend some time.
process that makes it so, I guess, obviously the social element, if you're getting interviewed by someone that's not as familiar, how do they assist with that?
Well, first they educate the employer in the screening
Okay.
process and try to help the individual. Like, just go
Yeah,
back to
both.
the beginning. Like, greet, like shaking hands, making eye contact. All of a sudden, this guy is shifty, he won't look me in the eye. Well, is that because he's on the spectrum, or that's because he's shifty, right? Other things, group interviews, right? Well, this right here, I mean, are you kidding? Like, I don't do this, right? I do a lot of good one-on-one. I've had like 2 terrifying group things that I've done before. And you get through it, right? But it's just us talking. There's nobody watching, right? You said?
You just reminded me. So one of the things, yes, it's just us
Right.
talking.
Yeah, right.
You reminded me of, I've known you for quite a while. I'm getting to know you a lot more. We don't really talk like this. But I did see you at an event, and you were on a panel. I forget the name of it. It was some sort of, and it was like a debate. It was very, very technical debate. This was not just like debating, something low level. This is very, you had to have facts. And I saw you on there.
Yeah.
What was it this? You
So
know what
that
I'm
was
talking about?
that was an event called Digital Fight Club. So it's like Fight Club,
Yeah.
but it's for geeks.
Okay.
So and it was an interesting situation. I was working with a friend of mine, Moji Karimi. He started a company called Semvita, and he asked me to help out with that company when they were starting up. Fascinating. In a nutshell, because we've got time, they turn carbon dioxide into useful industry chemicals
Oh, wow.
at ambient heat and temperature. It's revolution. They use something called cytobacteria, which are what caused the great oxygen event that gave us oxygen in the first place. And they're really an economically viable company to solve this carbon dioxide issue. Anyway, side note. So they asked Moji to go. Moji couldn't go, so he asked me. So, because I would never volunteer for Fight Club, right? So, and it's debate for geeks. So you go into a panel, and the guy that was my opponent was Stephen Taylor. And Stephen and I actually became very good friends. We met at Fight Club. He was my opponent. They pick a topic. You get an opening. They have an opening. You duke it out, panel asset, and then the audience votes.
There's an audience, there's a stage, so you're putting yourself on the spot.
It was white, and I, because of the lights, I could only see this far, thank goodness, or I would have just not been okay. But it was just, it really, in your head, you learn how to just shut it all down. It was Stephen and I.
Focus.
And it was the White Oak Music Hall, and it's just like Fight Club. It's loud, there's lights. It was an event. But fortunately for me, it was oil and gas versus the environment, and we had it in Houston, Texas. So it was, you can probably look up the fight online just for time, but yeah, needless to say,
Tell them how we can find it. 'Cause
I beat Stephen. Digital Fight Club.
Digital Fight Club, and it's the one
I can
with.
probably try to find it, and I'll drop the link.
Okay,
on
we'll
your-
put a link
your
on
feed.
here because
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, it was a good fight, especially because I won, right?
Yes.
But I mean,
It's always better when you win.
especially, but it
On
was.
my end, it was always. A lot
Yeah, I'm
better.
sure. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a good. That was a good moment. The other one that come to mind, another one, and was A&M University. They do this. They do this like incubator where they take all of these different companies, startups. Another friend of mine, Calvin Holt, has a company, and what they do is they do digital surveillance of shale shakers and drilling. So they're like facial recognition for rocks. Nobody's looking at this right now. It's revolutionary tech. And so A&M University, they have this big pitch competition. So Calvin asked me to do the pitch. So, okay. So
Pitching to investors, or it's competition.
it's a competition. I mean, and there's like hundreds of companies and they weed them down. So first one was sitting there and doing a selfie video, a quick 1-minute pitch, send it in. Wow, we got selected. So then the marathon starts. And talk about a taxing day, right? So, and it's all people, right? And you can only tolerate so much before that tolerance bucket is empty. But you persevere because you're fighting for the cause. There's prize money,
Yeah,
right? They're giving
yeah.
away hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we did really well. We did the initial pitch, and thank goodness we went like straight through to the top to do the final pitch. I think there might have been one in between, but I was sitting there, and Maysoon, my wife, was sitting beside me, and I didn't realize when the guy said that there's like 10,000 people watching. These Apple Watches are really cool because if you have a massive change in heart rate in like 1 second, it gives you a buzz and tells you. Well, I'm sitting there holding her hand, and it goes off. It's like it's gonna be okay. So, and she was beside me for that. Got up there, and we won second place, and we
So,
took some
so this
prize money.
watch goes off, obviously indicating your vitals. You're freaking out in every physical sense, but you still had the mental focus to say, I gotta push through.
10-minute pitch in the final. I mean, that was it. Like, so you just go up and, you just make the world disappear and just do your thing, right?
Now, is that
So-
something you taught yourself? Is that something you credit to just having autism, or is that's just Michael learning how to deal with life and I've got to get this done and focus?
Well, I mean,
Where'd that come from?
I think it was a coping mechanism from early on. I mean, when you're an outcast, I've been locked in my locker. you have all this emotional pain and stuff, and you have to find a way to detach and see yourself as a third person. So some of those skills of getting through elementary school, junior high, high school, it can be a really mean world. And when you have that kind of pain, you just learn how to detach and see yourself in the third person.
Wow.
So scenarios like this is lower on the stress scale. Those big events like Fight Club, you just learn to close everything down to what's in focus and just get through it one step at a time.
Wow. So Michael, you're still in business for yourself. Is that correct? Or-
No, I work for a company as a main job, and then I help some friends out.
Okay.
I'm on the board of Drill Docs, my friend's company, and a few others. But
Okay. So give your company a plug if you want to, or give yourself a plug to let people know how they could, if they could use your services.
I appreciate that. I mean, but for the purpose of this, like Potentia, would be my thing for a venue like this. You can always look at me on LinkedIn and see where I'm working, who I'm working for them. I appreciate that, but
Well, you're
I'll
incredible.
leave that a mystery for everybody.
Okay, we'll leave it a mystery.
He's involved in so many things.
Yeah, he's incredible. I had, through Mr. S, I had the privilege of getting to know you and watching your work, and he speaks highly of you. And I don't know if you're paying him or what, but it's working.
I'm impressed. I really do. From a very practical sense, I like how he makes things very methodical. Some things that are kind of intangible and conceptual, he finds a way to put it down into pieces.
So, what I'm seeing through this and through this conversation is having autism is really no different than any other kid. Everybody's got something they're overcoming. And autism is one thing, but when I was coming up, I was so little for my age. I got stuffed in a locker. I went through stuff like that. Kids would pick on me. Now the difference is my dad taught me how to whip people. And I mean, literally, I'd pick up things, and he said, if you come home and if you didn't whip them, you're going to get a spanking.
You're going to get whipped.
Yeah, and he really would. And so I learned how to, take care of big kids, real quick.
Yeah.
And so really, it's just, if there's somebody out there that's got autism, just overcome it. That's what you've done.
Just work at it. Work with your parents. They're there to help you, right? Everyone just wants their kids to be good, independent, self-sufficient
Yeah.
adults. Never use it as a crutch. I mean, accommodations are fine. Whatever you need, you just got to go after. The thing is, I guess, is just once you find your passion,
Yeah.
use that autistic focus and drive to pursue it, something positive and something that's going to better yourself.
Yeah.
I think that finding your passion advice, that applies, to everybody. Once you find that passion, that's what drives you. That becomes your why. But I think someone with autism, I truly believe they can have an advantage of sorts, because I know focus is a challenge of me. I get pulled into here. I like new shiny objects. Focus is something I have to intentionally make myself do. And so it's kind of a blessing. I'm jealous that you just had that naturally. And you could use that to your advantage. So I think that's something I like to highlight. Get somebody excited about. Hey, I've been diagnosed as autistic. Don't wallow in it. You know what? I can be better than 90-something% of the world if I can leverage this. Think of it as a
Just
advantage.
find a way to overcome it.
People are people, and even on the spectrum. I mean, not everybody on the spectrum is Doogie Howser, whatever the thing is.
Right.
I mean, you've got a variety of things. So you've got sort of two big buckets, right? I was gifted with good IQ from the genetic side in my thing, and I was also gifted with very low EQ, emotional intelligence. So, and we're running out of time, but one of the other fortunate things was when I was at Tesco Corporation, I had a boss that actually moved me to the US from Canada. And all the tests they did and everything, we didn't know what was wrong with me or if anything was wrong with me, but my 360 scores, engagement, drive, creative thinking, through the roots. Empathy, understanding people, it was through the floor. But, I learned a lot. But it was fortunate that they identified this. They sent me to training and gave me a coach and did all kinds of things. So I learned emotional intelligence. I learned how to, you know, pretend to have empathy. It's not like we don't have empathy, but it's just wired different. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Just work at it.
I like that element because we all have gifts. I think, you know, the Lord gave us gifts for this and that. That doesn't mean that you're boxed out of whatever your gifts are not.
No.
So it's good to identify them just so the fact that you can figure out, all right, now if I want to be here, I need to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that,
Awesome.
but I think some people like their crutches.
Yeah. I think too many people find crutches.
And we're not here to shame them. We're here to point it out and
No.
say, hey, overcome it. Give that thing up. Kick
Yeah.
that crutch.
Not here to shame them, but get over it.
We're
Find
here
a
to
way. Don't,
encourage
you know,
them, right?
quit whining and, quit. I'm dead serious. Quit whining. Find a way to do it. I mean, other people are. So quit whining. Find a way to overcome.
One of the purposes that we started the show
I like being controversial.
It's okay.
is to inspire people. So it is not to, chastise someone for holding on to their crutch.
No.
It really is to get people like you that have overcome something like this. People might look at as a crutch and say, you know what, if you can do it, they can do it. If somebody else says this, we really do want to inspire people
Yeah.
to
I
push
do.
through with whatever they're
We
doing.
do.
I hope so. That's why I came on.
Well, we are running out of time. Wrapping it up, what else would you like to, final thoughts to advise to some young people out there or old people out there that are dealing with this? You've said a lot. What would you want to kind of close it out with?
I think it's great. Really, the thing is, you're only limited by. And I know everyone says that stuff, but it's true. You're only limited by yourself. You can do anything that truly you put your mind to and you invest in. And that sounds so dorky, but that's really
But
what
it's
it
so
is.
real.
You need a passion for something. So find the passion, find a place, find a company that will appreciate your passion. Is the other piece too that's sometimes missing.
I love it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Well, we close out every show. It's a Balkan show. Life is tough. It comes at you hard, so we put our guard up. So kind of join us. We're looking at the camera, and we're going to put our guard up because things are going to come at us.
That's it.
Awesome.
That was so interesting.
Was that good?
That was
Oh,
awesome.